I'm Joanne Law, Director of Studies for Mediation Institute and co-founder of Interact Support. I'm on a mission to prevent violence by training and supporting dispute resolution practitioners. Mediation Musings is a series of conversations with mediators and for mediators. So if you're interested in dispute resolution, follow the channel. We're intending to update new recordings each week. Enjoy. Today we're talking with Emma Heuston, who's the principal lawyer and founder of Remote Expert. So welcome, Emma.
Hello.
So firstly, what's Remote Expert?
So the Remote Expert is my law firm. It's a new law firm specialising in remote work law. So until January this year, I spent 4 years working remotely at partner level for Legal Vision from where I live near Byron Bay, New South Wales. We relocated from Sydney when my son was quite young. I have family up this way. And when we moved, I had a young child. I wanted some flexibility. I tried a local firm. That really wasn't much more. The commute was less and property prices were less, but otherwise the same issues that we found in the city were happening. So I began to work remotely, and it was just really great. And you know, I sort of very life-changing for me. And last year in May 2018, I released a book called The Tracksuit Economy, which is about how to work productively and effectively from home. And that got, you know, a lot of great feedback and attention. Released it in ebook last year, and earlier this year I now have hard copies. And it's been so great to see that there's a real need for this flexible work, and in particular what I focus on, remote work. So as a result, I've set up a law firm which is, you know, has 3 service offerings, which the first one is a lot of templates and policies for companies who have remote workers. And now it might just be someone who works from home 1 day a week, or it might be someone who works wholly remotely. But it's really important. There's some legal issues they need to cover. If there's a company, you know, if they want some help, I offer it, you know, a service where they do it themselves and check, or I actually do a lot of drafting or customised agreements for companies who are going remote or that kind of thing. Yeah, so very niche based.
And niche, but very, very on trend, I think, because it's just increasing more and more that companies are doing this, because you know, getting the right people doesn't need to depend on the right people being right where you are.
Oh, that's right. And certainly with the drought in regional New South Wales.
Yeah, people
a lot of people are desperate for work. So someone might have married a farmer. They want to get a job, but they can't get a job in a remote place, but they can get online work. And they might be an accountant or a lawyer or HR person, or, you know, a graphic designer, and that just opens up all this talent pool to employers, but also it opens up those towns and gives some support to those rural and regional towns that maybe are struggling in the drought and economic downturn.
Absolutely, yeah. My dad's out in central west New South Wales, and yeah, my poor town is just dwindling away. Yeah, so there's many places like that. Wow, that's fantastic. So if people wanted to get the Tracksuit Economy to read it, is it on Amazon or where?
So it's on Amazon. So it's on Amazon and iTunes in ebook version. But if you want to buy the hard copy, I have them here. And if you go onto my website, www.theremotexpert.com.
Okay, perfect. And look, I'll put a link as well on our website, but it's so theremotexpert.com.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That's brilliant, because it's certainly an opportunity both for people that are getting remote employment and employers who don't actually need to house people. And if you put your policies and procedures and everything in place so everyone knows the expectations, it can work really well.
That's right. And even in, when we were talking before we started recording, dispute resolution and having that ability to see people remotely through Zoom like we're chatting now, it opens up so much more freedom for people.
Oh, look, absolutely. I attended a regional professional development for mediators recently, and virtually no one was doing anything at all with video meeting technology. They were all talking about the dangers of kangaroos with the long drives, and so we've just launched a video meeting facilitation course, because digital literacy and digital competency is absolutely necessary for any knowledge worker now, I believe. If you're just limited to having to drive to meet with people, it's just a real problem for you.
It also, it's also a more cost-efficient way in a lot of ways. If you've got to take flights or drive and accommodation, it makes things more accessible, I think.
Yeah. Oh, look, absolutely. And for me, from the point of view of a mediator, I'm really concerned about full-day mediations, because I often think people end up with a agreement through exhaustion. And logistically, it makes a lot of sense, particularly if it's a lawyer inclusive process, because you've got to get all these people there. But it's because of the logistics, not necessarily because it's going to give the best option for people to make a self-determined decision.
That's right. Sometimes having that distance or a day or two or a week to think it over, it just makes a lot of difference.
Absolutely. So one of the things I know you're working with is an online dispute resolution panel. So can you tell me?
That's right. So I'll disclose at the outset, I'm not a mediator, but I've been appointed to the mediation panel, which is not just mediators, but there are mediators, arbitrators, and expert dispute resolution, and I fall into that last category, particularly around, with my experience in law. I've had a lot of startup companies, new law type work. Okay. So that's sort of my niche within that area. And there are other practitioners, so former court justices and other practitioners who are mediators. And it's part of a new business called mediation, which people can register. So mediators can get on the panel, or other dispute resolution practitioners. And then the panel or the company mediation will assign disputes to them, and that's all done remotely. Yeah. So it's a really great way to, and what we were just talking about before, access, justice, access, and really great
timely manner and
practitioners.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the really great thing, that because they don't have to house people, they don't have to have the big meeting rooms and all of that tech like Zoom or whatever technology they're using is low cost sort of thing. So it means things that can be resolved much more quickly.
Oh, that's right. And certainly, in family law, the court sometimes requires you to get certificates and go through procedures, but not all jurisdictions are like that. So it's really great to have that option, say, in a civil dispute where you might not be forced by the court into mediation, but people can see that that's an option.
Yeah.
And it's, it might well save them a lot of money, $50,000 or $100,000 by pushing a dispute to court.
Yeah, absolutely.
And help the court system. So I think that's such a good way to look at the future of
Yeah,
what we
absolutely.
do.
And look, that range of alternative or appropriate dispute resolution, ADR options, arbitration and expert
Mm,
determination are really important in the mix, because sometimes there are really factual
mm,
things that are that can be determined, and there's legislation that's relevant, and there needs to be some sort of consideration of that. Um, so I think that's great to have the range and so that people can get the appropriate process for their issue.
mm.
So yeah, well done. Hopefully that goes well, and I think I might have applied for the panel of Mediator, but I'll put the link there for people as well. So
Yeah, I think there's going to be a second panel round as they get going. I imagine that's going to grow more.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think there's going to be more options like this as they grow. So okay, so you with your law work, it sounds like you're doing a lot around that employment area, and you
Yeah.
mentioned new business startups and that sort of
So I look at remote work agreements or contractors agreements. So you've got that issue: is someone going to be a contractor or an employee? And then when they are, you need to look at legal issues about, well, if they work at home and they're an employee, you've still got to pay workers' compensation insurance for them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all this kind of case law around. There was a case with a Telstra employee who fell downstairs and hurt herself at home, and was that part of her job, and was she covered with workers' compensation, and all these really kind of tricky things. So I've got things like a work health and safety checklist where you can upload photos, and that's really great for employers to keep on the file, and it helps them educate their employees about what they need to do at home for a safe workspace.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't set up your desk next to the stove. But some people, they need to know where the exits are, no trip hazards, really good furniture, things like that. And there's also, and this is probably something that would strike a chord with your audience too, confidentiality issues.
Yeah.
So, you've got to keep information confidential. So if you have visitors to your home or family members, you've got to be really careful. And in law particularly, there's a lot of professional responsibility around that. There's also things like data security and who owns the equipment and how you regulate cyber security. So there's all these really kind of interesting issues that are emerging when people choose to work differently. And I'd hate to think employers get scared off offering the option of even someone working from home 1 or 2 days a week, because they can be more productive, and it could just be give them back if they're commuting, say, an hour each way and they work from home 2 days a week, then that's 4 hours a week you've kind of given your employee back. So, I think it's a really good way to keep them loyal and sort of curtail any exhaustion that they might feel.
Yeah, and no, that's fantastic. And what about with contractors? Do you sort of go across that?
Yeah, I do have remote contractor agreements, just looking at issues where someone is not coming into the office, and it's things like data security, and it's similar to a traditional contractor's agreement, but there's this extra layer of where they're a remote employee. And certainly if they're traveling around as a digital nomad across countries, there could be some tax issues and immigration issues depending where they're working. So it's such an interesting thing. You sort of got to work out where they're a tax resident, and often if someone's taking a working holiday but working remotely, they might just enter on tourist visas, but technically they are probably working illegally in that country for that time. But if they keep their tax in Australia, it probably never really gets found out. But certainly if you're relocating, you've got to look into those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there are things that you might not realise unless someone alerts you. For
Mm.
example, in the family dispute resolution industry, people can't work as an family dispute resolution practitioner if they're not physically in Australia. They can't use Zoom,
Mm.
London when they're on holidays, and because the legislation doesn't allow for that. And that was quite a complex discussion we had with the Attorney General's department. Um,
And that, for example, I've worked with lawyers who have lived in Germany or moved to Paris for a year and kept working.
yeah,
And you kind of think, if a dispute resolution practitioner does that, is that fair? Should they be able to do that in this day and age? It's a very interesting question.
yeah. Well, at the moment they can't because of
Mm.
legislation. There wouldn't be a constraint on a standard mediation like a nationally accredited mediation.
Mm.
There clearly is, and the Attorney General's department has put a fact sheet out about it on their website now. So if anyone is considering a working holiday, you might have to constrain what you're actually offering. Because the main problem is the inadmissibility and confidentiality provisions of the Family Law Act don't extend, and so that would
Yeah.
people could be subpoenaed, and it could cause all sorts of problems for your clients or you.
Yeah, and you leave yourself open to
Yeah,
being sued if that's the case, and your client's case suffers because of it. That could be a really big concern.
quite really very significant consequences. So yeah, and I guess that's just an example of the kind of unexpected things that can pop up in this new economy, and
Exactly. Yeah, because I'm talking about, tax, immigration, and then in certain occupations, there's actually legislation regulating that. But for example, in another country, there might not be the same restraint.
No.
So it's super important just to get that advice before you start working that way. And that's also, I do advice work for issues like that as well. So yeah.
No, it sounds like interesting. So most of our listeners, or well, it varies a little bit, are in the dispute resolution industry, mediators, family dispute resolution practitioners, family group conferences, but many of them are lawyers as well. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners about what you're doing or your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I think I really think that look at technology. I think that is the real thing. With your video conference training, of course, don't look at technology, but obviously in your area within Australia. But there would be nothing stopping someone being able to move cities, for example, or have a tree change or a sea change like we did, and coming up north and working the same way they had worked before. I'd like to think that that's possible, and that's sort of what I encourage as part of my book, The Tracksuit Economy, ways to do that. And now with this new remote expert work, I think that's so important to explore ways you can do that. And it's always good to try things out.
Yeah.
Is what I think, rather than just go, right, I'm going to move to Dalesford and that's it. You might go there for a month and rent a house and try it out, which is what I always, when I say if someone wants a remote worker on. So, for example, if someone wanted a virtual assistant or a paralegal support to do some research, it's always a great idea to test that out with the probationary period. And I certainly know of people who've moved cities and they've gone on a trial period with their current employer because they don't want to they don't want to lose them, and just to iron out those things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because there's many different aspects to the work, and the communication and all of those things that need to be worked through. It's not as it's not as straightforward as moving to another office down the hall.
No. So there's things that they need to look at, and it would be good. These types of things would be really interesting for your listeners in terms of if they wanted to start doing conferences remotely. So I think there's a lot of video conferencing programs.
Yeah.
So just working out which one is best for them, which one is the most reliable, because technology is great when it works, but occasionally it doesn't. And even things like, if you're sharing confidentiality agreements and exchanging mediation position statements, there's probably a way you can do that online. So sharing at the most basic level, probably a Google Drive, where you can share those and have access with certain parties to certain folders, and collaborating there. So there's all sorts of things like Trello and Asana, which are sort of online organisation systems that you can put post-it notes. And I think practitioners may get to the stage, dispute resolution practitioners, where they can do a lot of the pre-mediation stuff virtually that way, to shorten the time that everyone is spending.
Absolutely. Yeah, and and look, people are developing apps. So Fiona Kirkman, who's one of our, she's developed Family Property with her husband Tim, and it's a fabulous tool for property mediation.
Yeah, I know Fiona. She's got Law Switch as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, which is a AI enabled virtual assistant, which is really, really fun. Or website.
Yeah, it's sort of a customer relationship kind of management thing.
Yeah. So people are helping developing tools, specific tools that help us in the dispute resolution in the legal industry, and other that are really customized, as well as there's heaps of free things available as well. So lots and lots of ways that you don't have to rely on email.
That's right. And even the ability for you to record a video as an introduction to send out to the participants, that makes them feel like they know you before they get in the room, and things like that, or voicemail messages, so that it takes away the fear of coming into a mediation.
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is marketing your services. So with living remotely, you don't have the opportunity to tap into the necessarily a big local network. What are you doing, or what are you?
So what I've been doing, I did a social media course with Stevie Dillon, hashtags on the answer, earlier this year, which was really good. It taught me about Facebook and Instagram. So I'm on both of those mediums, and I have got a couple of clients from Instagram, but I think LinkedIn is really been really valuable for doing that. I collaborated with a lawyer in Canada and a lawyer in America. This lady, a remote work consultant from America, writes articles for Forbes, and she interviewed us, and we were in Forbes, and things like that promoted through LinkedIn have been really helpful. So I'm trying to get sort of organic traffic. I haven't explored AdWords yet, but I'm very close in the next few weeks to launching my sort of core product, which is a remote work handbook, bringing all the templates in. And once I have that up and running and finalized, I'll probably start exploring AdWords. But it really is about getting out and speaking at conferences. So I'm at the Flexible and Agile Summit next week in Sydney, running a workshop and doing a keynote. And this week I pre-recorded already. I'm at the Remote Future Summit, which is a virtual conference.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's people from all around the world presenting about technology and remote work there, which you can register online and get video access. So I'll send you that.
Link. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll link those up. So yeah, okay. So that's a great way, and definitely, yeah, because the conference promoters bring the people together for you. So
And it's actually this week, just before the conference starts, I've just had a mountain of LinkedIn requests, and they're saying, "Oh, I'm presenting at the conference too." So there's all these.
So other influencers.
Yeah, that's right. And I've written a few articles for the Law Society Journal in New South Wales as well, and that kind of thing. So just getting out, speaking to people, and referrals or relationships I've built is the way to do it. Marketing is really tricky, and as with, I'm actually writing an article for the Law Society Journal about using social media as a lawyer or a professional, and the office of the Law Society's got some guidelines about how we should use it. So there's ethics rules and professional rules, and I imagine dispute resolution practitioners, some of which are lawyers, but also otherwise, you guys have the same kind of thing. So you've got to be careful how you use it, and you look at all these politicians with the election coming up, who I think there's been 6 now or 6 candidates had to remove themselves because of something they've said on social media in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them are a bit extreme, but it can be as simple as just liking something that and that you haven't necessarily paid proper attention to.
That's right. And I'm sort of an ex-family lawyer. When I first started I practiced in family law for the first 5 years of my career. So that was 14 years ago now. But and social media was just kicking off then. But now you'd see emails people would send, but now you think people, family lawyers are in court with people saying things on social media, and it's just added a whole new complexion to.
Oh, look, absolutely. And look, Mediation Institute's a mediator accreditation body, and it's our responsibility to de-accredit people if they're not acting in a professional way. And that actually, we've had situations where we've had to do that, unfortunately, because of the way that people were comporting themselves on social media. Because and
I'm actually wondering, with lawyers and accredited mediators, whether eventually the fit and proper person test,
whether it's the problem. Yeah,
it's going to be that people won't be get their accreditation or their practicing certificate because they've said these things.
Absolutely, because if you can't have convictions for violence or child abuse, but if you're out there absolutely encouraging violence or abusive behaviour, it's not appropriate.
No, that's right. And it's not professional either. When it's a very trusted position.
Absolutely. I mean, almost as high a standard as footballers. They're constantly getting in trouble as well.
all codes as well.
But no, look, it's a real issue, and it's probably it's something. It's great. I'm glad we're talking about it because it is something that people need to be mindful of. I don't think that means you just abstain from social media. I think you just need to be mindful of.
And I don't think you can abstain. The reality is that that's how news and advertising, and that's how we're communicating with each other now. So I've got friends who say, I'm not getting on this, these social media net sort of platforms, but then you kind of think, well, how are you going to, you know,
Yeah.
and especially I've got a 7-year-old son, so I want to know what he is going to, you need to keep up with it to make sure you can regulate what they're doing online
Oh,
as well.
absolutely. Like one of the, a couple of the speakers at the TEDx that we ran recently were talking about social media. Some of the young people, they were, they want their teachers to be able to help them to manage it. And if the teachers aren't on there and they don't understand social media, they can't. They're, they're kind of ignorant of it. It's not going to help. And the same thing with us as professionals. If we don't know what's going on there, how are we going to assist our clients to manage it properly?
That's right. And certainly mediating family law disputes,
Yeah.
you're going to have a really good knowledge of it to
Yeah.
be able to work out. And that might be a good way. When I was a family lawyer, it was always the calls, but now I imagine there's a lot of social media messaging, which takes the other parent out of the equation and can lead to more harmony if used correctly.
Yeah. Although there's some really good apps being developed now as well, co-parenting. So it they're good in that they're not confidential. So any
Yeah.
messages are very easily captured and recorded. So it tends to help prevent the family violence, abuse, and communication, because getting caught is always a good deterrent on these things.
Oh, absolutely. I must admit, when I practice family law, it's like, okay, let's swap over at McDonald's every second week. And there was sort of, all that allegation that they're saying this, they're saying that. So I think that's amazing
Yeah.
if you can use technology. But having said that, you need a really good working understanding of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, digital literacy is a major concern. I'm still finding people occasionally that don't have an email, or they don't know what's my email address. They don't know. It's not something that they just understand very much,
Yeah.
let alone all of the rest. And that's it's going to be a real barrier as things continue to progress, because already so many things, government services and support, people have to do it online. So there's another opportunity for people working remotely, helping people in their community, being the access point to the world through technology.
Yeah, that's right. I know my grandmother, she's 88. She has to have myself or one of my aunts to help her to order things online or do things online. And if she didn't have us, it would be really hard. And I'm doing at the moment a HR subject as part of a graduate certificate in professional practice, just to sort of look at change management and human resources. And we're looking at sort of job recruitment and selection through social media, and they're saying that they can target more, but there is actually a section of the population not on social media, and they maybe don't have access to those jobs or the same services. So it is a real segment that we need to empower people to have access, but also make some people have access but choose not to exercise it because of data privacy issues. So
but it's really about controlling what you share, and but in that whole context of family law, it can be quite fraught. But as professionals, if you're wanting work, either work with clients, work with referrers, work with or jobs, you need at least to have a decent LinkedIn profile, I think.
Absolutely.
If I was a recruiter and I'm comparing two people, one who's shows that they're connected and they've got got an interest in the world, and the other one who's just a piece of paper, it wouldn't be a hard decision.
That's right. And that's what people do now. They go to Google.
Yeah.
Even I will Google clients to make sure before I speak to a prospective lead or a prospective client, to make sure I know a bit about them. So, and when you can't find something, you're sort of thinking, oh, it's a bit unusual.
Yeah. Oh, look, absolutely. And look, the data that's coming out of the OECD about future skills needs and all of that, it's all about emotional intelligence, ability to collaborate, ability to communicate, and the way you engage on social media is kind of a little bit of a hint for some of those. So yeah, it's an interesting. We really are in such a period of rapid change that, and I worry that some people aren't aware of that.
Oh, I think so. Or they're scared of the change rather than realizing, rather than saying a robot's going to take my job, or, you kind of like, let's see what I can do to upskill or do my job differently to make it easier rather than harder or being fearful.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you've got that. Lulu. Shh. Got my poodle.
Yep, she's definitely got an opinion about that.
Yeah, she does.
She's saying, well, what about that automated feeder? No, that's really interesting. We've talked about quite a range of different things.
Yeah.
Working remotely and technology, they are the technology's an enabler of that. It wouldn't be possible.
Yeah. When I started 19 years ago, I worked in an office. There's no way I could have done what I'm doing in the way I'm doing it. I would have needed an office. I would have needed to focus on local clients instead of clients around the country.
Yeah.
Really interesting change in such a short time.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's certainly the thing. So, look, I'm just aware of time. So, are there any sort of final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I think we've really, as you said, we've talked about such a wide range of things. I think we've covered it all.
No, that's wonderful. So, look, I will put the links to some of what you've shared, and certainly to your website if people are interested in the Tracksuit Economy, or some of the conferences and what have you that you're talking at. Working remotely and technology, they are the technology's an enabler of that. It wouldn't be possible.
When I started 19 years ago, I worked in an office. There's no way I could have done what I'm doing in the way I'm doing it. I would have needed an office. I would have needed to focus on local clients instead of clients around the country. Really interesting change in such a short time.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's certainly the thing. So, look, I'm just aware of time. So, are there any sort of final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I think we've really, as you said, we've talked about such a wide range of things. I think we've covered it all.
No, that's wonderful. So, look, I will put the links to some of what you've shared, and certainly to your website if people are interested in the Tracksuit Economy, or some of the conferences and what have you that you're talking at. Yeah, so thank you very much for making the time available and having this chat.
All right, that's great. Thank you.